Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Navigating STEM event this week. We have a wonderful event planned for you today, sponsored by STEM Starter Academy at 4Cs. I'd like to ask everyone to please turn your camera on so that we can see you. And as we go along, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. You can either put them in the chat to everyone, or you can direct message me and put your question in the chat. And I will get to the questions during the Q&A at the end. So we're going to get started today with the STEM Starter Academy Navigating STEM event. I'm so glad everyone is here from Professor Lyons's IT classes. And this session is being recorded so that we can share this with a wider audience after recording. And so I'm glad that you all are here today. Once again, please turn your cameras on. And if you don't have a webcam, that's okay. Send us some messages and comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So STEM Starter Academy is sponsoring today's event. We are funded by the Department of Higher Education. We are at all 15 Massachusetts community college campuses, and we use success coaching to support students' success. We help students in STEM set goals and achieve them. If you would like to get involved, please email me, and I'm going to put my information in the chat once I'm done speaking. And I would love to be in touch with you about how we can support you in STEM. All right, next slide, please. So I want to also just put a quick plug in for our STEM Network Jobs and Internships Board. We have tons of new internships listed. The link is right there, and I'm going to be emailing you all this PowerPoint slide presentation, but it's basically the CapeCodsTEMnetwork.org site, the At Work tab. Okay, next slide, please. And also, if you are transferring to a four-year school, if you are graduating this spring, please reach out to me about our transfer academies at each of the state schools across the state. So each of the UMass schools or the state campuses, we've got a program that continues STEM Starter Academy at your four-year school. So contact me about that, and the link is right there in the flyer. Okay, next slide, please. Now, I'm excited to introduce to you today our three panelists. We are so lucky to have these women in STEM joining us to talk about their careers in IT and biotech. So Robin Bartlett Rodenbush is the head of information technology at Spark Therapeutics, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Spark Therapeutics is a fully integrated commercial company committed to discovering, developing, and delivering gene therapies. Robin has over 20 years in IT leadership in the biopharmaceutical industry. Prior to joining the industry, she had 10 plus years in IT consulting and advisory services in a tech division for a CPA firm. Robin is the proud graduate of class of '89 at her local community college, Bucks County Community College, and she finished her formal education at DeVry University. Okay, Robin, we're so glad you're here with us. Shannon is next. Shannon Gath has been the Chief Information Officer at AMAG Pharmaceuticals for over 3 years. Ms. Garth is an executive with global experience in business transformation across multiple industries, pharmaceuticals, biotech, financial services, high tech, and multi-site companies. She's a digital leader with 20 plus years of experience developing and executing market-leading technology and digital strategies. She was named an enterprise finalist for the 2019 Boston CIO of the Year Award, the 2019 Rising Star by Healthcare Businesswomen's Association, and named 2020 Most Powerful Women in Tech for her leadership and innovation. She's active in women's leadership organizations and has served as the chair of the AMAG Women's Network. She currently serves on the board of directors for the nonprofit organization Budget Buddies, helping low-income women find financial empowerment. And she serves on the Boston Chamber of Commerce Women's Network Advisory Board. She actively volunteers in support of STEM to inspire the next generation of female technologists. Prior to joining AMAG, Ms. Gath worked at Fidelity and served on the Fidelity Enterprise Technology Steering Committee for Diversity and Inclusion. Past experiences include 8 years at Vertex Pharmaceuticals and a variety of technology roles. She's a graduate of Tufts University and a lifelong resident of the New England area. And she enjoys watching her kids play sports, running, cheering her for her beloved New England Patriots, and spending quality time with her family and friends. She currently resides in Andover, Mass, with her husband, 2 children, and beloved dog. Thank you, Shannon, for being here. And Susan is with us today. Sue Hatfield currently leads the IT team for a biotech company in Cambridge, Mass. The company focuses on discovering and developing novel therapeutics to treat rare immune-mediated disease while also advancing late-stage biosimilar portfolio. The research focuses on developing therapies in rare diseases in the fields of neurology, maternal fetal medicine, and hematology. She has held IT leadership roles in pharma, biotech, and technology companies for over 20 years. Sue's early career and qualification was in accounting, working for Dun & Bradstreet companies in the UK. And Sue is very excited to meet you all and to have this informal conversation. Next slide, please. So we have Nina Quattromani, who's here from WPI. She's an engineering student at WPI, but she has ties to Cape Cod Community College because for the past 2 summers, she has been an intern with the Cape Cod Regional STEM Network, helping to analyze data and create programs that we needed in the summertime. And Nina has agreed to moderate the questions that have been generated by students. And so on behalf of students, Nina will be asking our panelists questions. Nina, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone here. I'm so excited to ask all these wonderful questions. And without further ado, let's get started. So to our 3 panelists, how did you get a start in your career and what made you fall in love with biotech technology and what you're doing currently?
Thanks, Nina. So I'll take that one first. And thanks, Bridget, to you and the team for the opportunity for us to meet you all. Shannon, Robin and I know each other from a local CIO network, so we really appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to stick to time. So just very briefly, in terms of how I got my start, my overall career actually was in accountancy. And during that time, I realized I had an aptitude and an interest in technology, and an opportunity arose after several years at Dun & Bradstreet to move to a technology company that were looking for people with business experience who could help interpret the business requirements for their customers and ensure that the technology delivered what it was supposed to. So basically improving the successful outcomes of implementations of their technology. During that time, I was exposed to pharma through a major project. Actually, the technology was implemented for the first time at Glaxo. This is back in the late 90s. And that really opened up the world of pharma and the possibilities therein. That connected me ultimately to a pharma company that were implementing the technology for the first time. And so I moved into that company and then held a variety of roles over a 13-year career there, all in IT. Although I did have one foray into the business for a short period of time. But that provided me with a great combination of technology insight, business process knowledge, and then learning more about pharma and biotech. In terms of what I love, why I stay now in pharma and biotech, it's the end goal. The business that we're in is to make a difference to patients, improving their lives, improving their outcomes, and especially in the rare disease field. So although I'm not a scientist, we provide them with the tools and technology for them to do their amazing work. The second reason that I love what I do is that you get to learn the entire business, the business of the business, end to end. So in pharma and biotech, you get to learn it from the research and development piece all the way through to launching a commercial product. And then third element, which is common throughout my career, is technology is always advancing. The advent of artificial intelligence, augmented reality, which you see now in your daily lives, is a thrill. The challenge, though, is to harness that and make sure it's applicable and advancing the companies that we work for. So that's how I started, and that's what I love.
I can go next. So as you heard in my bio, I went to Tufts University, so down in Medford, Mass. and that bio is very long, and I apologize for that. Poor Bridget's reading that. I should have trimmed that down. But I studied mechanical engineering because, you know, I loved math and physics. Those were my favorite subjects. So I, you know, took an internship right down the street. Cambridge Applied Systems was the name of it. And it was a startup. So there were maybe 15 people in the whole company, and you had to wear a lot of hats. And one of the things they asked me to do was implement an MRP system. So I'm like, okay, but I want to make sure I get it right. So I actually went out and trained myself as a developer so I could speak intelligently with the developers. And then I said, well, that's not the same thing as a DBA. So I went out and trained myself as a DBA. And I just am a very naturally curious person, and I like to, you know, do things right. So I, you know, just having started to really dip my toes into the different areas within technology, I just immediately fell in love. And most of my career right from then on was all in IT. I've been in a lot of different industries, but I think what I love the most is, you know, I have an engineering mindset. I like to solve problems, and I love that interconnection of people, process, and technology, because that's really how you're going to solve everything. You can't throw technology at a problem and solve it. It really is that, you know, intersection of those three things. And, you know, I just like to solve real business problems. So.
No, thank you. And I had a bit of a different path to enter into IT, as I kind of tipped my hat on my age, I think, by my proud graduate statement there. So don't tell anyone, but I didn't have the opportunity to go to college directly out of high school, and entered in, frankly, my career, started waitressing, and then realized that I wanted to take a different road, and started my education at our local community college, and subsequently joined the CPA firm that I ended up being with for 13 years. I actually joined there as the receptionist, but I was able to very quickly advance into some other parts of the business, moved into bookkeeping, and then from there moved into a very newly formed technology services division. I have to admit, I joined when PCs were just becoming commonplace. Again, tipping my age. But one thing that was clear is that PCs, although certainly had been very prominent and were readily used, individuals needed help to adapt to utilize them best. And that's how I joined in the technology field. And I also had an aptitude and a strength for it. I'm often very surprised that some of the leaders there let me do some of the things that I did. I'm not sure that I'd let some of my newer team members do what I did, but thankfully I didn't take the company down. So through that, we formed a technology services division at the CPA firm, where we were working with a multitude of industries in deploying accounting, mid-market accounting solutions, as well as solutions for Salesforce and human capital management systems. And I had the good fortune of being hired by one of my clients, and that was my entry into the pharmaceutical industry. It was a biotech, and it was a very novel company that was focused on protein therapeutics. So they were very, very early in, I know Sue mentioned biosimilars. They were very early in the biosimilars space. And from there, ended up leading IT. I had growing roles in there. And then through that career, I spent 10 years there, moved to a generics pharmaceutical company, which is another part of the industry that was very helpful. And now I'm at Spark Therapeutics, which is gene therapy. So I've gotten a taste of a lot of different biopharmaceutical companies. What I love about it is a lot touching on exactly what both Shannon and Sue said. And what is so exciting about our industry as a whole, we all feel the patient is our North Star, and every function there is contributing to that and feels that. So very mission-based, this industry, and those of us leading in IT have a very key role in helping develop and deliver these medicines to patients that are waiting.
Wow, well, those are all really incredibly different but similar paths all at the same time. You all really the similarities but the different like starting points are really incredible. So moving on to the next question, Sue, what does breaking the glass ceiling mean to you?
Thanks, Nina. So I'll offer up some stats to start with, which I offer as context. It's not to put you off, it's not meant to discourage, but just thinking about who we are and what we're interested in. So research currently showing that only 26% of computing jobs are held by women. And this has been on a steady decline since the late 80s. Retention of women in technology roles is also challenging. So twice as many women leave the roles as do men. And even in the largest technology companies, so the Facebooks, Amazons, Googles, Microsofts of the world, women only make up about 34% of that workforce. So there's an opportunity, there's a big opportunity out there to change that. I think even at the senior IT leadership level, it reduces further to about 8%. I can't find the research at the moment to verify that, but that's what I recall. So in terms of my role in breaking the glass ceiling, it means creating space for others, so opening doors for others. And how do we do that? We do that by influencing hiring and career development opportunities. It means trying to create and then maintain an inclusive environment. So diverse opinions, backgrounds, experiences all have a value and are regarded as such. And then there are things that we can do to improve actually the number of women. So this is, part of the opportunity to talk to you all, is improve the number of women or increase the number of women coming into technology-oriented roles. There's something that you might have heard about. There's something called the broken rung theory, so that even when you come out with your qualification, there aren't enough entry-level roles to get you that first rung on the ladder. So then as leaders, that is something that obviously we're very interested in doing and improving, so that means creating more entry-level roles or even managerial roles for women. So there's a lot that we can do to influence others within the organization. I think also removing and certainly reducing, to start with, conscious and unconscious bias, because through that recruitment, we're in a male-dominated profession still, there is unconscious and conscious bias. And so we need to continue to educate and make folk aware of that. In terms of my own personal experience, I've been on senior IT leadership teams for about 20 years now, albeit in the minority. But I look over my career experience, and I've been very fortunate that the companies I have worked for have provided opportunities. I've sought opportunities within those companies, and they've always encouraged women across the board. It's not just me. So I would say I've been pretty fortunate in my experience to date.
And I'll just add to what Sue said. When I started in my career, I couldn't name a single female CIO, not one. And the three of us go to similar conferences every year, and every year I watch the lunch tables. You have to be a CIO to be in the room, and there are tables of 10, and I try to count how many women are in the room. And the numbers are better. And literally when there's a line at the ladies' room, we're high-fiving in the line going, this would never have happened 10 years ago. And, I think forums like this are really important, because I think when you see yourself in some of these larger roles in the STEM field, you can start to imagine your own careers where maybe it's harder to do in the past. So, this is for me a lovely moment of pause and time where I'm just like, wow, this is fantastic to be able to sit here with Robin and Sue, who are very successful in what they do, and I'm just very grateful.
I would just add one thing to that question as well. I think as women leaders, and also I think the encouragement of flexibility, because women still do carry quite a bit of a lot of the family responsibilities. And I think, unfortunately, you can see a lot of women dropping out of the workforce as a result of the pandemic. And that's because of caring for their families. So what is heartening for me in our industry is seeing that encouragement of not trying to make one choice or another or try to do it all, but encouraging that flexibility so that you can have that balance and the recognition that it's required. So we're supportive of women in our fields as a result of that.
Well, yeah, as a young woman and aspiring woman in biotech, it's always amazing to hear that those positions are opening up, and there are people in power that are looking to give us a way in to our careers. And Robin, along that vein, as a woman in a male-dominated field, what are some unique strengths that you feel are most valuable?
Sure. So I always hate to do this because it sounds stereotyping, and I don't want it to feel that way, because I do feel these strengths are often witnessed in men and women. But I've seen often women are very resilient, recover back from setbacks very readily. It could be due to the juggling they do all the time. So I think that's a quality that's really critical, and often and very, we need to take advantage of that and demonstrate that. The other aspect of it is, especially since we're in a field that's technical, obviously there's IQ that's necessary for all the technical demands, but especially the further you get up the ranks and in leadership positions, there's what they refer to as EQ. So you're all the things of being, empathetic and creative, artistic, all of those qualities. What's been interesting is I've read about science that the University of Pennsylvania did back in 2013, and scientists actually studied MRIs between men and women, and they found that women's brains have more connections between both sides of the brain than men do, which I thought was interesting, and that we could quickly go back and forth and utilize both sides of the brain more readily, whereas men may be more focused in one area, and those shifts don't happen as fast in the interconnectedness. I see that a lot in leadership. I think women are inherently good listeners. I think they're supportive leaders. But I think the balance that women also have to manage is you don't want to use those skills too much, where you maybe appear to be deferential or not confident. But there's some really good, but they're very good skills. They're the soft skills that are critical to have.
Wonderful. All right, and moving on to the next question. Sorry. Shannon, where do you feel the biotech industry is flourishing, and why?
I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and the spotlight is on all things life sciences, right? It's interesting because historically they've had such a bad rap for these high prices and all that, but what you're actually starting to see is everyone hanging on every step of the product development life cycle, because we need that vaccine, right? So I think people are getting a better education of like, what does it take to actually get a drug to market? And people are starting to understand. The thing that I find fascinating about all of this is, the fastest vaccine ever was mumps. It took them 4 years to get that available to people. This was less than a year. What was different this time is you had like global cooperation, right? And it took money to do it. You have governments giving money to these companies that had these technical capabilities to do things. And that allowed them to even get like stockpiling of the vaccine before they even knew it worked, right? Which is critical in the timing of potentially saving lives. So it's fascinating, but it didn't happen overnight. This virus is in the in the family of viruses. So they've had data for over 50 years on these viruses. So it really becomes about data and how can you crunch all the numbers. It's about trial and error and, running numbers as quickly as possible to figure out what's going to actually work to combat the virus. And you have things like artificial intelligence now that are helping to do that. And when you can't go to a clinical trial site because of the pandemic and people having to, be careful with being high risk, and now you have wearables, you can actually you actually get more data, better data, instead of people going once a week to check in a clinical trial or once a month. Now you have people wearing them like 24/7. You're getting much better data to understand how effective some of these, investments might be. So I think that's changing everything. And then I think it's also the rest of the population is now getting more comfortable with a digital life, right? Telehealth. Like how many of you before the pandemic ever used telehealth to have a doctor's appointment? you probably did, in, you know, especially in the early part of 2020 when no one was going anywhere, if you needed to connect, you were much more willing to try it. And then I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised with how much easier, like, I don't have to park, I don't have to drive to get there. This is so much better. And then you get a patient portal with all the things that you would normally forget once you walked out of the office. So, you know, I think, you know, that intersection of that technology and, you know, solving a major crisis for the whole globe, you know, it's just fascinating to me. And I think that's why you're seeing them flourish. People are not only betting on them with money, they're succeeding. So I think it's a great time right now for biotech.
Agreed. And just to add to that, so the science itself, so Shannon just talked about technology accelerating and science accelerating as well. So there are continuing to be improvements in things like immunotherapy, gene editing. So you may have heard about CRISPR, the ability to, you know, edit genes. I see Nina nodding. That's all maturing as well. And then to build on Shannon's point, you know, the awareness now and education about what it takes, because I think there were actually about 120 companies working on the COVID vaccine. We've seen unprecedented collaboration and so on. So that's now creating, I think, a virtuous cycle. So this is success. It's building more success. It leads to more investment because we need investment to come back into the science, and then we can fund more research and development, and then it starts again. So it's becoming, I think, a self-fulfilling success cycle now as a result, strangely, of this incredibly impactful pandemic.
And just to kind of touch further on what Shannon and Sue said, one of the things I thought was very exciting was the two entrants providing the vaccine were both digital biotechs. They very much leveraged technology that enabled the speed that they've been able to develop these vaccines. And it's also a novel technology. It's a messenger RNA. So it's been very, very exciting. And the whole use of data, you know, Sue and Shannon touched on it. That was key to it all, of which the IT industry, the individuals in IT has a lot of meanings, and there are a lot of roles that may not be the traditional technical roles that are still IT roles, but they very much contributed to helping hopefully end this pandemic.
Well, yes, that was, yeah, I mean, I don't know how much else to add to that, but like all of the new cutting edge technologies are finally getting the attention from investors and from the world and from, you know, just citizens in general. They're getting the attention that they need to really flourish and grow, which is, I think, exciting for everybody involved and everybody getting ready to join that workforce. So I think it's time to open the floor to other questions.
Thanks, Nina. So I encourage everyone to please type your questions in the chat, because now we're going to transition into a Q&A where we're going to take questions from the group and I'll moderate the questions. So please put your questions in the chat. And we'll start with a question from a student at 4Cs. Are any of your companies working with AI and or blockchain technology to improve the industry and its data-driven outcomes?
I can take AI as an example. Where AI has been really successful for us has been more in the information security and the cyber security space. You know, using AI for next gen antivirus detection and all that. It's a big vulnerability for every company now, because pretty much every company in my mind is a technology company at this point. And you need to protect all your assets. And I think in that space in particular, where you can learn fast, it's an ever-changing environment. It's the perfect place for a tool like artificial intelligence.
I can add in at the company I work for, not necessarily AI, but more machine learning. As I mentioned, we're a gene therapy company, and gene therapy is still in its nascent stage, but there is a amassing of data. We talked about COVID, obviously getting the genetic sequence was the key to help find this vaccine. So there's a lot of sequencing data that, and a lot of genetic machine, automation that's happening currently, of which we have within our business teams a team of data scientists that are looking to mine them to be able to find, they're basically digital bench scientists in some way. So it's a very interesting thing. So as far as AI, that's still early in our world, but at least we're leveraging machine learning.
Similarly, so actually the company I work for now has just been acquired by a household name. So whilst we weren't using AI, the company that has acquired us absolutely is. It's at the forefront of what they're doing in research and development, particularly in their pharma organization. So I'll leave it there. I don't have the details, but yeah, it is. There's a significant amount of investment has gone into AI and machine learning, augmented reality. They are really exploring the full gamut.
And I'll just add too, that I know somebody mentioned blockchain. So when I was in financial services, there's a lot of research being done on blockchain to protect the chain of custody, of the different assets that they support.
And I don't know the progress on this, to be honest with you, because in being in a rare disease company, there were regulatory requirements to serialize our product, which would be individual identifiers on every vial or unit of the product. And there was discussion about blockchain being incorporated in that process. That when I was at the generics company, obviously that was a little more close to the business strategy. Being in a rare disease company, the number of vials are lower, so the serialization requirements are different. But that is an area I believe the industry has been looking at.
So here's another question. What role has mentoring played in your professional development and in your career? Are there some examples that you can highlight about a mentor that you've had and how you connected with that mentor?
I can chime in here. I've had a lot of really great people that I've worked for. And I will tell you, I learned as much what to do with some of them as I learned what not to do. So, everyone's at a different maturity state in their leadership progression. And I do think, being a sponge for seeing how some other leaders are either succeeding or failing is all learnings that you can apply to yourself. I think that's really important. And then I think really making sure that you have people outside of your current environment that you can use as sounding boards. I tend to have the rule of, 12 board of directors is basically what I have for my career. And, I tap people for different things that, they have certain strengths that, maybe are development areas for me. And I lean on them when I need to make sure that I'm using that type of perspective or I need to be stronger there. But that's worked really well for me.
So just to add, so more recently, so I mentioned at the beginning that Shannon and Robin and I are part of this informal CIO network. And as part of that, there is mentoring because it's quite a lonely role. So to be able to tap into, as Shannon just described her board of directors of 12, to be able to tap into that community is amazing. It's not just the technical, hey, what are you doing? Or we've had this issue, or, what are you doing in AI? It is I'm preparing for the audit committee, or, I have this issue with a senior stakeholder. And to be able to access that insight and experience has been invaluable.
I would agree. I think as IT people, when I joined my career, were not very good information sharers. And I think we've gotten a lot better as peers in being comfortable with sharing that information and being comfortable sharing when we don't know it, because you can't know everything. So, but tapping into that, for me, as far as mentoring, I've had also the good fortune of having really good managers. I've mostly reported to men in my career, and they've always been very supportive of my career. In fact, how I moved from the receptionist to bookkeeping was all because of an individual that I happened to be typing a letter for, and he saw some aptitude and ability in me that I didn't even see in myself, frankly. So I was fortunate that I've always had that. What's interesting though is when you are in smaller companies, you are the expert. So you do have to often reach out outside the organization to get that support, just as as Shannon and Sue said.
I've also had a reverse mentor, which probably some of you guys would be great for me for that too. It's just, sometimes, you've known the same technology and it's aging and aging and aging. And then, whether it's my 11-year-old daughter upstairs showing me how to do something on the phone that maybe I didn't know or take the time to learn. I do think it's also, I need to tap on, younger people that have a different, connection and a different perspective that is going to also add a value back to me.
And Sue, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just actually reflecting on my career, I think the thing to bear in mind too is to actively seek a mentor. So Shannon talked about, observing role models, but to actively seek a mentor is a very valuable thing to do because they advocate for you too. You can be the hardest working person, getting all your results done, but sometimes unless you've got someone advocating for you in forums that you're not present in, that it doesn't matter because you're not getting the visibility, and they help give you that visibility to other decision makers.
And their network, that you're tapping into their network. It's not just your mentor that you're benefiting from. And I actually am going to type in the chat. We have a brand new virtual mentoring platform. So I encourage all of the students to sign up for that because you can get a mentor that can help you with all of those things that you've just heard. And it's free and it's easy to sign up. Kind of along the same lines, we have several male students in IT that are on this webinar and more that will be watching the recorded version. What is something that a male coworker or counterpart or colleague can do to really help empower women? And getting back to that question about the glass ceiling and what is something that you would say for the men on this call that are in IT? What is something specifically they can do as they progress through their careers?
I think just to start the conversation, so I think listen and give space for female colleagues to speak, and when they have spoken, to acknowledge that they have spoken and what they've said. It can be a little too easy to breeze past the comment, even if it's even if it's not the right answer or it needs further development. But I think at least to listen, acknowledge, and then move on. It makes people in general actually feel more valued. You've been heard.
I'll add to that too. I think growing an awareness around what are the common obstacles that women face in the workplace, so that when you see it, you can do something about it. And, to Sue's point, the research has shown until there's 10 people at a table, until there's 3 women at the table, most women's opinions are dismissed, right? So if you know that, or that they're less, willing to contribute, and you see them quiet and they have the answer, or you give them space, like Sue said, and say, hey, Bridget, did you have some thoughts on this? Give them that space. I think that, it is hugely helpful for women just to have their voice heard and understood. Now, and the other obstacle that comes to mind too is a lot of times a woman will share an idea and then like 2 minutes later, a guy's saying the exact same thing and they give him all the credit. But whether it's me or a man in the room, everyone should say, well, that was a great idea when Nina said that 10 minutes ago. So, I think, making sure that the women get credit for the work and the contributions that they're given, that, they have the space to, be a valuable asset to the team, and really recognizing the work that they do. I think that's a great way to help.
And I would add to that we as women suffer more from imposter syndrome than men do. So, and it's a forever challenge. I think we always feel we have to know everything about everything before we speak about anything sometimes. And I think just encouraging that your colleagues that they can go out on a limb a bit. They don't have to know everything. Provide those opportunities and let them know that they have a safe place to land. Should they go astray and such, and making them feel comfortable take those risks.
So we have another question in the chat. So early in your career, what was your most ambitious project? Was it the release of a technology? Can you talk about a big project that you had early on and maybe some of the challenges and things that you faced, whether that be with imposter syndrome or other external challenges? Does anyone want to take that question on?
Sure, I'll start. So it was a project. It was the first time that the company I was working for was the lead for this technology project. And I think I mentioned it was Glaxo back in the late 90s. So not only was it a challenging project, so it was the first time the technology was being implemented in the company. It was being implemented in 9 sites, one of which was in Singapore, in a very relatively short time frame of about 18 months from design through actually being able to stand up their own dedicated support center. And it was pharma. So learning all of that and all the controls that come with it. And I had the fortune or misfortune to replace someone who had been the finance lead. They were going off to do something else. So I'd say parachuted. I felt like I was just dropped in, but it was the most amazing opportunity. So it was big profile for the company, big profile for the Glaxo themselves. It was a mammoth project with multiple actually companies who were providing different expertise. So we had one company who were providing the GXP, so all the controls that have to go into place to prove that what you're designing is actually what's delivered and is suitable for the business. As well as, and Robin just mentioned it, the imposter syndrome. I think, why me? Why was I parachuted in? I don't know everything that needs to be known about making this a success. I was on a fairly senior leadership team, but it was the best experience, which actually ties into something else. If ever you ask me the best career advice is say yes to opportunity. Don't be afraid. You'll feel like an imposter. It doesn't matter what you do, but you'll get over it. And it turns out to be, often some of the best experiences.
I think everyone feels like an imposter at different times. But it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes everyone looks so confident, but recognize, I think everyone's feeling that.
And that actually was going to be one of my next questions, is what is some of the best and worst career advice that you've received?
I can start with the worst. I was told to succeed in business, act like a man. And that was like way back in the day. And what I've learned throughout the years is because there are so few women, and you should stand out. It's different. What to make you unique, embrace it. I'll go to a conference and I'll be the one wearing a bright red dress or a bright pink dress, and you got all the guys in their navy suits. So, I think, embrace what makes you different, because, people are going to think of you top of mind when opportunities come up and all that. And I think being unique is also going to make you add something different to the team that nobody else can bring.
I'll tag on to that a bit, because I received the advice to be one way at work and another way at home, which I always struggled with, frankly. And I don't know that was good advice, because being authentic is really key to being, building trust. And people know when you're trying to be someone you're not. It comes through. So thankfully, we have grown in our view of what a leader is in that area, because it is okay to show emotion. It used to only be okay to show emotion when you were angry for whatever reason, but if you were upset and showing sympathy, it wasn't okay. But to me, that's being authentic. You're feeling all those things, and it's okay. And for me, that was always a struggle for me to try to turn all of that off and be one way at work and another way at home. So I thought that was kind of one of the worst pieces of advice I got, that I frankly failed at anyway. I couldn't do it. So as far as the best part, it's just more remembering I deserve to be there. I mentioned before, I had a little non-traditional journey of getting to where I'm at, but that's okay. And I'm surrounded by very intelligent PhDs, MDs, very, very well-schooled and intelligent, articulate people every day, and often wonder, like, how did I get here? My journey was a little different, but I deserve to be there, and I contribute, and I'm a valued leader. So just kind of remembering that and reminding yourself that, I think, is some of the best advice I've gotten.
So another piece, actually I asked, I did a poll last week and with some friends, and the best advice they offered up was build relationships before you need them. So build your network, build the relationships, establish, gain that political capital so that when you need it, because you will, it's there and people will be willing to work with you to sort out, whatever has happened.
Here's another question from the chat. So asking about educational pathways, how important is a bachelor's degree versus on-the-job experience? And to what extent in the companies where you are, do they train on the job and provide support and for professional development and career advancement? Can anyone speak to that?
I can speak to the fact that did you guys read the book, My Personal MBA? And I think in that book, they did research and it was like a return of investment of like negative $80,000 on an MBA. But I never pursued an MBA, but it didn't stop me from educating myself in all the different areas that I think build a competency that's behind an MBA, because you do need it. Whether or not you have the degree, I think is a different animal. But I do think, especially with the focus on getting more women at the top, you see I actually, feel bad sometimes for the men, because I think sometimes more often women are given the opportunity to go to strategic leadership development programs, probably more so than the men are right now. Not that you can't champion for yourself, but I do see, taking the time to go through different programs like that really can help accelerate what Robin talked about earlier, which is EQ, or emotional intelligence, which is really what's going to keep you cascading upward.
So there's also, it depends on the role in the organization. So if you're a scientist, yeah, absolutely, there's going to be an expectation that you are qualified in the field in which you're going to be working. I think in technology, it can be different. And it is, as Shannon said, it's kind of a lifetime journey of education. So there's the self-education, and Google has made a lot of things accessible to a lot of people. So it doesn't matter if you're not in the field right now, you can absolutely go and do research. There are certifications, so the more technical the role is, so if it's in information security, there are going to be technical certs that you would be able to get and would need to get actually to stay abreast of the technology, certs in project management and so on. But I don't think it's an all or nothing. We've discussed that there are different ways into the profession. There are different attributes and experience that are valued at different points in your career. And I was reading something recently that actually, as part of trying to encourage women to come into technology in particular, looking at potential and aptitude as opposed to current quals and experience. So I think as leaders and as people interested in moving into STEM, don't feel that you're hemmed in either. There are different routes that we've all described to move into and through and up the technology profession.
And I would applaud each of you for being students in a community college, again, since it's kind of my journey. But I really do feel the community colleges educate very well, and in my area is similar to this college, are very good community colleges. There's no need to get your education and be in such extreme debt when you are done. There's a lot of ways of getting the education, and there's a lot of great colleges out there. So I applaud each of you for taking advantage of that. I do feel, especially the more technical the role, on the job experience is key, especially with IT. It changes all the time. And I have many network engineers that have worked for me, or very technical roles that did not have a degree, but they were very well skilled and trained in their technical capabilities. And to the points earlier, they often achieve certifications, and whether it be from Cisco or Microsoft, whatever the technical expertise they had. When it seems to shift when you get into a management leadership role, there is an expectation that you have a higher level degree. So, and that's mostly due to some of the items that we've talked about before. So that's been my experience. The bigger the company, the more room you have in some of these areas to be able to bring in those that are learning more on the job, it seems.
And I'll just add one more point. Of all the leaders I know, the best ones, the one common theme is always they're continuous learners. No one stays stagnant. So whether it's an actual degree or certificate, you got to figure out where you have blind spots and just dive into it. You got to be proactive with your own education. Nobody knows everything. And, you know, I feel like if you're not, you know, learning and growing, then, you know, you won't be successful.
Thank you. We have time for just 2 more questions. So if you haven't asked a question, you can put it in the chat, either direct message me or put it to everyone. So our second to last question is, what is some advice you would give to your former selves, or some advice that you wish someone had said? So looking back with 2020 vision, what is some advice that you would give to your former self?
I think Robin already characterized it for me, which is believe in yourself. Believe you can do it. And so therefore do things sooner. Don't put things off.
I'll also say Robin's comment about being authentic, because I remember getting the same schooling of being 2 different people, especially in being a woman. Like, don't ever talk about your kids because that's all they'll see and whatever. I agree with Robin 100%. I think the best thing you can ever do is show up as yourself.
And for me, it's more of the path you take is really within your control. Certainly, we have chosen leadership paths, but they come with compromises, and sometimes our family gets compromised at different times. I think you each have to kind of look at what you want out of your career and life, and the balance and the focus areas. And it's perfectly fine not to pursue a leadership track if that's not what you want. You can be very successful in many other avenues. So just be really thoughtful, because sometimes the moving up the ladder aspect of it may not be what you want. It may not make you happy.
Okay, and so for last question in the chat, what do you hope for the incoming biotech or IT workforce? What do you hope they will accomplish?
I'm really excited about the whole data science aspect of it. Obviously, I think again that the students are being very well educated in that now. You're going to be able to solve some really difficult problems that patients are suffering from right now, and be able to deliver these medicines. So I'm excited to see what you all do in that space.
Yeah, well said. And I think I think keep an open mind and partner with, so technology is the business, but we often differentiate IT from the business, but make sure that you have a close partnership with the business, so that whatever you're working on, whatever you're developing, you are truly enabling and accelerating whatever your business counterparts are working on.
I just think it's amazing that we're getting to a point where you can cure disease, not just treat a disease, right? And the more you can accelerate that on so many different areas and therapeutic areas, I just think that's going to change the world.
I would agree. Being a part of a company that is gene therapy and it's a one-time treatment that is potentially curative is really exciting. All of these technologies are really helping shift from chronic treatments to cures, which it's amazing. And we're entering into areas that, especially in the central nervous system area, that there is a lot of unmet diseases or challenges to be solved there. That it's going to be really exciting.
Thank you all so much. And we're going to close now with our last slide. So I'd like to thank Nina, Sue, Shannon, and Robin for being with us today. And so I would like to highlight a few upcoming events that we have. The links are here in the slides, which you will receive. Next week, we have 2 events, and these are the last in our Navigating STEM series. We've got Nailing the STEM interview with mock interviews. And on the 18th, we have scholarships, all about scholarships for STEM students. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We will be sharing the recording once it's edited and polished. And we appreciate all of your time being with us here today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for having us. Best of luck to you guys.
Thanks all.
Thank you so much.